I'm a really good employee. I love delivering results and that external validation that you get when you've delivered results and you're working in a team. I loved all of that. The idea of being self-employed, it was something that I'd thought about when I'd been made redundant previously. But it was just always something that was sort of an option, and I quickly jumped over it and went to get a job. So when this voice in my head was like, you need to leave and start something yourself, I was like, what's going on? Like, this makes no sense to me. I made myself very, very ill for a number of months because I had this fight going on in my mind. There was this voice in my head that was saying, you're in a good job working with great people in a good business, you're earning a good salary, you've got a good life. Like, why on earth are you going to walk away from that to start business? But then the other side was like, because that's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm meant to do. That's what I want to do. I don't know why, but I believe that it's where I should be and that I can make it work and it's what I should be doing. It was just this feeling, go for it and do it.
Toni, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so fun to now turn the tables. I was on your podcast, and now I'm looking forward to hearing more of your story. And I was doing a little bit of research, kind of on your background, listening to your own podcast. But can you tell us and everybody listening a little more about what it is that you do right now and what are you focused on?
Okay, so for right now, I'm an accountability strategist. Um, I love helping people take action and get things done. And I'm sure that we will come to this when we talk in a moment about my career. But it has been full of making sure that things happen in order for me to achieve sort of what was my life's purpose and my life goal. Um, which was all very much focused on my son. But then when I realised that sort of I'd achieved what I wanted to, that was when I moved into what I'm doing now, and started my business. And so now I want to help other business owners take the action that they need to achieve the results that they want in their business, so that they can make their goals and their dreams come true.
So much goodness you mentioned there. I'm like, where do we start? So, talk more about this life's purpose, what it is for you right now, and it sounds like it's shifted.
Yeah, so it was a couple of years ago. I was talking to a former colleague, and we were quite a deep conversation. And I was talking about how my career had always been about having the flexibility to raise my son Ben, and the financial side in order to give my son the life that I'd always wanted as a child myself. So that had always been my focus. I never sought career titles or hierarchy or particular amount of money. It was always about having this balance of being able to spend time with Ben, as well as being able to have the financial side to do anything and give him anything that I wanted. And that was always my focus. So everything always led to that. And then a couple of years ago, somebody helped me realize that I'd achieved that. And I was sat in this chair, actually, in this exact place. And I can still remember the feeling that went through me when I realized I've done that. I've achieved that. I've given my son everything that I could ever have wanted. And he's had a great, great life. And I'm really proud of the young man that he's become, but I'm very, very proud of the mum that I have been, and my husband, obviously, and the parents that we've been and what we've done. And I think that that settled in my mind for a couple of years. And then about 2 years ago now, I was stood delivering a session to our global coaches, and something just went off in my mind. And it was like, you now need to go off and do something and build something for you. Everything that you've done has been about building a life and giving Ben a life. And now it's about doing something and a little bit, I guess, proving something to me of what I can do. So my life's purpose now, in terms of the change of that, is much more focused, I think, on me using and bringing the 24 years of experience that I've got from work into a place where I can help others just take those next steps for them to achieve what they want to achieve, and for them to build the businesses that they want to build for whatever purpose they're building that business, be it because they've got young children and they need it for the flexibility, or be it for people like me that are just thinking, right, okay, what's next, and anybody that's in between.
Beautiful. And how loud was this kind of change in direction, that voice that you were talking about?
That's a really good question. It was it was really quite loud. It took me by surprise. I never I'm a really good employee. I've been a great employee. I've been a high performer in every role that I've done. I love working with people. I love delivering results, and that external validation that you get when you've delivered results and you're working in a team. I loved all of that. The idea of being self-employed was just it was something that I'd thought about previously when I'd been made redundant previously, but it was just always something that was sort of an option, and I quickly jumped over it and went to get a job. So when this voice in my head was like, you need to leave and start something yourself, I was like, what's going on? Like, this makes no sense to me. And it actually, I made myself very, very ill for a number of months because I had this fight going on in my mind. There was this voice in my head that was saying, you're in a good job working with great people in a good business, you're earning a good salary, you've got a good life. Like, why on earth are you going to walk away from that to start business?
Mhm.
Like, what? Why? But then the other side was like, because that's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm meant to do. That's what I want to do. I don't know why, but I believe that it's where I should be and that I can make it work and it's what I should be doing. But that makes no sense. I know, but this is what I should be doing. Yes, but look at all of these things, and your whole life has been around building financial security, having being able to not say no, like always being able to say yes to Ben. Like, why are you going to risk that? And I ended up with a skin condition,
Mm.
which was diagnosed with being extreme eczema, which got infected in the back of my knees. I've never been in so much pain in my life. If I hadn't have been able to see that it was my skin that was the problem, the amount of pain that I was in, I would have taken myself to hospital. Like, it manifested, the stress of this constant argument within myself manifested itself as pain and as visual illness, and it didn't look very nice either. But it was just too strong a calling, I guess, to ignore. So it was the October that I had the thought, and then it was the following July that I handed in my notice. So it was a long time of thinking and arguing with myself and trying to convince my husband also that it was the right thing to do. So yeah, it was a loud voice, I think, is the short answer to your question, because it didn't go away.
To convince your husband and convince yourself, it, probably both equally, or even convince yourself stronger, given kind of that battle. So it sounds like a really, really strong battle that I think so many of us face, especially kind of that rational mind, like you said, like all the practical checks are there, and it's like, are you crazy?
Yeah, I did think I was going crazy. It really did. It was like, I don't know, it makes no sense to me. Like, where is this? where has this come from? It makes absolutely no sense. And at the same time made perfect sense.
Mhm.
At the same time, it was like, no, it's the right thing. It's the right thing to do.
So this internal dialogue of kind of the rational reasons why everything is working right now and how it doesn't sound like a reasonable idea to quit and to be going for this. So how would you describe that voice that you had? Was that like a different feeling, or yeah, how would you describe it?
Yeah, it certainly wasn't rational, because there was nothing that I could put behind it. So I haven't run a business before. So it wasn't like I'd run a business 10 years ago and then I was coming back into it. Like nothing about it was rational. It was a feeling. It was just this, it was this feeling, but a tangible feeling. It was just, it will work. It's what you're meant to be doing. Like you just need to go for it and do it. And that was as clear as it was. There was nothing else there in terms of what that meant. Was really unclear. And for the first few months of after I left my job, for the first few months, I was really um, um, having discussions internally with myself in terms of, well, how can I best help people? So I knew that I needed to do something that was purely about me helping other people. So not being in a business and being part of a business. I knew it was me that needed to help and work with people one to one. It's something that has been consistent all the way through my career in terms of how I build relationships and how I really can get the most out of other people. And so I knew that it needed to be that, but it was, well, how do you do that? What does it look like? And it took me a while to land on accountability. It was what I always wanted to do right from the beginning, but then there was just, and I think it was the rational part of my mind that was coming in again, saying, but do people need that? Like, is that really a thing? So I fought that for a couple of months, but then when I landed there and got comfortable with, no, actually that's what I'm really good at, that's how I can help people, that's when things started to settle, and the momentum started to build from that point. So yeah, it was just this crazy random feeling.
Thank you for sharing that. And I love that you're expanding on it because you're answering like some of the things I'm thinking you're answering. And I love that. And so, how much clarity did you have about what you will be doing when you hand in that resignation? Like, did you, again, the rational advice is to say start something while you have a job, right? Because there's, like you said, there's a lack of clarity, then there's this beta testing. You don't know which idea will be the right idea. And it does take time to land on kind of to get to that place, what you said, where you can clearly
Mm,
articulate or even know what you're doing, what you're helping with.
yeah. Well, I had asked a couple of months beforehand if I could go part time so that I could do some of my own coaching in my own time. And I'd requested that at work, and um, they offered me a promotion. So at that time, I thought, right, okay, I'll let that be the decision. um the promotion was a promotion in terms of my role, but then there was also in a few months time an opportunity to move to the senior leadership team. So I thought, okay, well, it's a couple of months, then I'll go all in. And that's something that's really important, I think, as well, in terms of my rationale for just quitting in the end. um i'm I'm not willing to not give 100%. So if I'm in a role and I'm working in a business and I'm working with a team of people, they're going to get 100% from me. They're going to get what they need to get for me to perform to the best of my ability in order for the business to perform to its best ability. So when the promotion was on the table, I thought, okay, right, this is the decision made. It'll give me a couple of months, and then in a couple of months' time, when there's the opportunity for another decision to be made, then I can see. And then at least that way, I'm not constantly in this seesaw. I've made a decision, so I'll do it. And so it's 100%, 100% in. And that's part of I think I might have struggled if they'd have agreed with that part-time, because how do you give 100% to building a business, and how do you give 100% to a job? So I believe everything happens for a reason. And I think that decision, and then subsequently what happened afterwards, because there was quite a lot of change that happened in the business afterwards. And so that didn't lead perhaps to where we thought that it might lead. And then ultimately that was when it was like, no, I'm going to take the control back into my own hands. We went on a family holiday. So the three of us were talking about it quite a lot, and then we agreed. Mark and Ben were completely behind me. I got back and I handed in my notice. So yeah, it was up and down. I think it would have been nice to have been able to try to build something whilst working, but I just think the way that I work, I might have found that quite tricky, because
Yeah.
I'm all in.
Yeah. No, so I completely understand. And did you then downscale the hours? Did you go part-time, or did you get a promotion instead?
So this was about the March time. So I had the promotion, and then I had an incredibly busy couple of months at work. There was a huge project that was going on, and that pretty much took up all of my time. Um, and then it was the July. So got the promotion in the March, and then it was the July that I just thought, no, it's now or never. There was a lot of change that was happening, and it wouldn't have been right. And I greatly respect the business that I worked in and the people that I worked for, and it wouldn't have been right, I don't think, for me to have been part of the changes that have happened and then perhaps have left a month or two later. So it just felt like it was the right time to just go then.
Beautiful. And then, so tell us, how long did it take you to arrive at what will you be doing, that you will be working with other business owners?
So I'd invested into a franchise in the July time, which was so it's called the Business Success Company. And it's a fantastic franchise that enables me to provide a number of courses and support to other business owners. And with my learning and development background, that really spoke to me, and I knew that I would be able to do something really special with that. So that was kind of this is the space. These are the people that I can support. There are many, and this is obviously a generalization, but there are many people that start businesses out of the circumstances that they're in. So they may not necessarily have had a corporate background, or previous sort of career type roles, and I can bring that experience and support people and bring in everything that I've got. And when you're building something and it's your own, and I think that becomes really personal and really special to you. And if I can help other people build that, then that's what really started to motivate me. Knowing that I could help somebody take their business from here to here, it was like, yeah, that's what really started to light my fire. It's like, that's it. That's what I can help with. I can shift the dial from doing things that are getting you results here to doing things that are going to get you the results up here. And so that started to become clearer the more that I immersed myself sort of in the online world and got to know people at events, and starting to understand a lot of reasons why people had started their businesses, and a lot of backgrounds, and a lot of the challenges and the things that were that people were stumbling over in terms of their challenges. So it was a bit of a slow kind of realization to a certain degree. But yeah, that's sort of how that all came about.
So it was really from kind of being in the field, if you will, being in the arena of having these conversations, because it can be a really scary place to quit without knowing what you will be doing. And I think that's a big hesitation, understandably so, why people might feel that draw, that, or at least they have the feeling. They might not know that it's a draw to entrepreneurship, but they have this feeling that they're meant for something more, that there is something more. um, but like bridging that gap, like it's a big gap, to really kind of
Yes.
like convert it into a real tangible to get the idea, and to get going. It's quite, it can be quite difficult.
Yes. Yes, it can. Yes. And
So,
it has. It's been really difficult. And the first couple of months, particularly, um, when I look back, there's there's something called entrepreneurs cycle.
okay.
um, and that talks about uninformed optimism. So at the beginning, you're really excited, and everything's brilliant, and it's like, yeah, I've started a business. And I remember I did some reels on Instagram in my first week, like my first day, day 2, day 3, day 4, like the first week is done. And it was like, yeah, it's great. Oh, I've just realized, like, I couldn't get the laptop connected to the monitor. I'm the IT manager. Like, I can't pick up the phone and get somebody to do things like I'm doing it all. And isn't that fantastic? And I solved the problem. And it's this uninformed optimism. And then you start to very quickly realize that actually, what is it that you're doing? Like, people had started to say, oh, I'm seeing you everywhere. I'd become very visible. But it's like, do you know what I do? And they were like, what is it that you do? And then just asking that question then made me think, well, actually, what is it that I'm doing? Like, how clear am I on actually what I'm offering and what I'm doing? And then they call that the valley of despair, because at this point you're now informed around what you don't know. So before, you didn't know what you didn't know. Now you know what you don't know, and you're in this valley of despair of, okay, like, who am I? What am I doing? Like, what's my messaging? What are my offers? Who am I talking to? Who's my ideal client? How do I connect with people? How do they know that I'm here? How do they know what I do? How do they know that I can help them? And that there's a lot in that. And that was when I realized that actually I couldn't do it on my own. And I think this is really important to talk about in entrepreneurship, because I think sometimes we get really excited about what we do. We know that we're really capable. We know that we love what it is that we're starting this business to do. So for me, I knew that having one-to-one, I knew that I could help people overcome challenges, overcome obstacles, take action, and achieve the results that they wanted. I know that I can do that. I've got history. I've done it for years. Like, I can do that. But I had no idea how to turn that into a business. And so it was in the November last year that I made an investment and I joined a mastermind. And that was one of the best things that I ever could have done. And it made me answer all of those questions. So who are you? What are you doing? Who are you offering it to? What are those offers that you're offering? And with all of that clarity came a lot clearer path around how to do it. And it didn't make anything easy, because business is still hard, but it made me realize that it's quite simple in terms of the steps that you need to take. So that investment was huge for me. And if I could go back now, then I would have invested, and I'd have done that a lot sooner. So I'd have sought help right from day one, so that I could have had that clarity. So I didn't have those months of high excitement, uninformed optimism, sort of just figuring it out as I went along.
Mhm. But do you think you can really shortcut, because all of this kind of informed and probably led you to what it is that you will do going forward? Maybe tell us a little bit about your corporate learning and development kind of or professional background. And yeah, I can see like training and facilitating, right? Translating into
Mhm.
you're doing it for others, but that still doesn't say, okay, that it's not like a clear direction. Okay, I will help other new businesses, new entrepreneurs.
Yeah, yeah. So I started my career at a bank, at a sort of a global financial organisation, and I was working as a team manager. Um, I joined on the graduate scheme, and there were a number of people in that office that didn't like me and didn't like that fact, because on the graduate scheme, you go in straight in on a certain grade. And there were a number of people that felt that you should earn your stripes within the bank. You should go and work in a branch and then work your way up. So it was very, very difficult from from my very first day. Um, but I guess there's an element of resilience that comes from that as well. So I'd started as a team manager. I'd had a very, very bad experience in my first role, that led to me going off sick for a few weeks. And then when I came back, I joined a new team. And in that time that I was off, I'd started to do some learning, because what I'd recognised was I wasn't getting the level of training and support in the role that I needed in order to go into a people manager role. I'd never managed people before. So whilst I was off, I started to research and look at what that meant, and I came back with a plan of how to manage my team, and built a great team, had great relationships, turned the team that I was on did very, very boring work, and they were fairly disengaged as a team. But I was able to increase those levels of engagement, and we had a great time. Actually, we built a great team. But I knew that that wasn't quite what I wanted to do. And I found myself on a 2-day attachment to a different part of the business. And they were project management team. And so they were responsible for delivering the changes within the business. So they delivered the process changes, any big programs that came in, they were responsible for managing those. And I just found that fascinating. And at the end of the 2 days, I said to the head of department, I've loved what I've seen these last 2 days. If there are any opportunities, then I would love to come and join the team. And she said, well, actually, over these 2 days, we've kind of been measuring you up, because we've got a position and we wanted to see if you would be right for that position. And so I was like, perfect. So I joined on secondment, and then ended up staying for a couple of years. And in my role as a project manager, I managed everything from sort of small process changes right through to a large organisational restructure. So just before I left that team on maternity leave, it was the team was being completely changed to bring together other areas of bank into one area. And I was asked to project manage the implementation of that, which led to me winning an excellence award at our annual award event, and also led me to just having an incredible amount of experience working with senior leaders, working with all of the team members, and really that strategic thinking of, right, okay, this is where we want to be, this is where we are now, how do we get there? And quite often with restructures and that element, you've got the leaders in the business, and they've got this vision and they're really clear on this vision, and so they just think that vision will just happen, and they don't think about the practical steps. And it was I was a lone voice in a room, and so I was early 20s. I was a lone voice in this room. I was like, well, how are we going to make that happen? And they just looked at me and said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, this restructure is getting rid of certain amounts of roles. Like, this role isn't going to exist anymore, but that work still needs to be done. How do we transition where that work's going to be done? And they just looked at me all blank face, and that's what I ended up taking responsibility for. So this vision of where you want to be and where you are now and the steps to get there, that was I see very clearly those steps, and that's how I can really support, I guess, business owners now, because for me it maps out quite clearly. Like, my brain just goes click 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 and does it. And so I think that's just part of who I am. I've learned a little bit about my human design, and I think that's part of who I am. I see processes and I see steps, but I'd also spent a few years managing processes, creating processes, implementing processes, changing processes. And as part of that, there's all communication. And when you're managing a project, there are people in that project that you need to rely on to do things that you are not the manager of. So I can't tell them to do something. I have to engage them. I have to influence them to do things that perhaps are outside of their normal day-to-day role, or that are within their day-to-day role, but I need it done quicker because I've got X, Y, or Z problem. So that communication and influencing and understanding how people work and understanding what lights them up. So it's really important to know what drives people when they're doing things, because when you want somebody to do something that you need them to do to get a result, then you need to understand, well, actually, how's the best way of me getting that out of them? And so I learned a lot about people and how people work and what they're driven by and motivation, and all of that now helps me when I'm speaking to a business owner. I can have a conversation with a business owner. I can ask a couple of questions, and I can know what's stopping them taking the next step. And I can ask the question because I can see that there's hesitation, or there's a fear, or there's something that isn't quite fitting right with them. So that really works as well. So that was my project management experience, and that came to an end as I left on maternity. So I just managed and implemented this whole change, and then went bye and went on maternity leave. And then when I came back from maternity leave, I was offered an opportunity to join a newly created team. And this team was being created to support team managers, to help them become better people managers and to help them improve the business performance. And so that spoke right back to my initial experience, where I'd had not the greatest experience, where I'd taken it upon myself to develop myself and learn about how to become a great people manager. I was now being offered an opportunity to be able to help team managers. So it was a yes. It was a absolutely. So I joined a new team. We were a small team. And then over 7 or 8 years, that team grew. I started out as a coach, so I was coaching team managers. So again, we was looking at problems on the team, performance on the team. How could they engage their team better? How can they improve the performance on their team? How can they improve having difficult conversations, problem solving? And I did that as a coach for a couple of years. Then the team grew, and I became a manager on that team. And as part of that, we wrote the strategy, we recruited, we trained, we inducted, we coached the coaches. And then that went on for a couple more years, until somebody in their wisdom decided that that team was no longer required. I think we'd done pretty good job, and they thought, oh, we don't need them anymore. And so I have all of that experience as well of seeing operations, of seeing businesses, of coaching managers who they may not be business owners, but they have got their own part of a business that they need to manage, and the performance and the people. And so that added to that skill set of project management as well, and also got me into coaching, which I absolutely loved.
Mm,
And that took me to my first redundancy.
mm. And you had three of those. I
I
think I
did.
listened to your when where you tell your story on your own podcast, and invite anybody to check it out. What was your podcast called?
Next level you.
Next Level You with Toni Addinall. Yes, I think one of the episodes is where you tell your story, and three, you call it redundancies. In America, we call them layoffs. Uh, but it's very applicable to this time and place just because in the last couple of years, there have been huge
Mm.
shifts. And, we completely gone from this hiring craze that happened in 2022, after the pandemic, to the tables being really turned, and a lot of people have found themselves laid off over the last 2-3 years. Big tech has laid off massively. There are functions that are really turned around. um, what kind of, and a lot of people are looking at the question, right, whether there is even a job to go back to, because we're seeing like 400,000, 2,000 applications for some jobs within 24 hours. So that's why I wanted to kind of have a little bit of a conversation around the layoffs. And the first immediate reaction, right, is to apply, because that's kind of what right, to apply for jobs. But the only thing is that in this market, it's not necessarily a very productive strategy. So how
Mm.
did you treat your layoffs and the further direction?
So the first one actually gave me exactly what I needed to deal with. The second one, the third one, slightly different. But the first one was really interesting because, first of all, I was being made redundant from a role that I'd been in for 13 years. And so I had a very good package. So that afforded me some time. So I had some time to really consider. And one of the biggest things that I had to sit and think about was, what do I enjoy doing? What is it that I want to do? Because I'd found myself in learning and development by accident. Um, I've been offered this role, as I've just told the story of, that I was interested in because of my past experience. And then that turned into learning and development because we were coaching people, we were delivering training, we were supporting people, we were understanding where the gaps were, and then we were filling in the gaps. And I'd never ever considered myself as being a learning and development professional. And all of a sudden, I sat there and I thought, okay, what do I enjoy doing? And everything that I listed that I enjoyed doing was around people and helping people become better at what they do, which is what learning and development is. So that's the first thing. Really think about what lights you up, because often we can find ourselves in roles, either by accident or by choice, but then there's always parts of a role that we do that we like more than others. So what are the bits that really light you up? If you could spend 80% of your time doing that, what is that one thing that you would spend 80% of your time doing? um, and then that really helped me then, because I knew then that I wanted to go into learning and development. So what the steps that I took then was, again, going back to relationships. And I'm always somebody to reach out and have a conversation and get some help from other people. I found a learning and development specialist recruitment consultancy, and I had a conversation. His name was Nick Jones. He will forever be somebody that I will always call upon. We had a conversation, um, and when you speak to a specialist recruitment consultant, um, they know their market, they know their clients, they know who fits. And so it was a conversation that enabled me to talk about what I loved doing, what my experience was, where my strengths were, what results that I'd got. And then basically I get he then did the hard work. So then he came back to me then with, I've got this position at this organization, I think it'd be great because of X, Y, and Z. I've got this one. um and so that relationship really, really helped me
Mhm.
identify what is a good role for me to go into, and also help me get the role. And actually what happened was I'd secured a role before I'd been before my redundancy actually happened, and I'd managed to negotiate having the summer off with Ben,
Mm.
and I'd also been able to negotiate a 4-day week as opposed to a 5-day week because of the relationship that I had with the recruitment consultant. He'd seen that I'd been working 4 days a week and could see the results that I'd got, and so was able to have that conversation. So having those relationships, finding people in the recruitment consultancy space, because it's their job, right? It's their job to put great people into the right positions. And if you know what you love doing, you can share it with them, and then they can really help you. And that was just one of the best things that I could have done.
I love that story. And so you was this a bridge where you went from the operations, kind of that operational management, project management focused roles into L&D?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I the role that I went into after my first redundancy was I'm not entirely sure what my title was, but it was sort of a learning and development consultant. But what I specialised in during that time that I was there was facilitation. So we had a large contract with another financial institution to deliver a big leadership program, and I was part of the delivery team. So I delivered that leadership program over 9 months. I was a little bit less than that. I think it was 6 months. Um, and so that really enabled me to become a real expert in facilitation and in delivery. And I worked with, again, some amazing people. And because it was such a long program, I worked with a lot of different facilitators, and I was like a sponge. I was like, "That's brilliant! I'm going to take that. That's brilliant! I'm going to take that." And I just took that as an opportunity to really develop that facilitation and that skill, which then was a key part of me then getting my next role, because I was only in that role for 9 months. I was then made redundant just 9 months after that second role, and then rinsed and repeated. So phoned up Nick, it's me. It's only 9 months later, but guess what? I've been made redundant again. He already knew me. He'd seen the results that I'd got. And this again is where it's really important with those relationships, because the role that I then went into was based in Leeds, and I'm based in Leicester, which is 2 hours away from Leeds. And the company wanted somebody who was Leeds based, but Nick really convinced them to give me a try. In terms of, I think it could really work with Toni working in the office 1 day a week. And they went for that. And I don't think they would have done if it hadn't have been for Nick. They trusted Nick's thoughts and opinions, and then that led me to my second role.
Beautiful. As you were talking, and it kind of goes along a little bit, kind of also what we started talking about is kind of starting something on the side or in the evenings, in the weekends, while you're working. How possible do you think is it to manage, like, there's a lot of conversation about portfolio career. I can also say, I have multiple interests. Sometimes I feel like I can't spend like 8 hours on the same thing. Like, I
Mhm.
absolutely love the interviews and the podcast, but I also teach qigong. So it's kind of like at a certain point, like, I have that spontaneity and my nature. How feasible from your perspective is it to have, a number of things that you focus on? I also know other people, who do 2 to 3 things versus the good old advice to focus on one thing.
I think that's a really, really good question. And I think there are a lot more people that are wanting a lot more variety. And I think there are people that want to, that there's not a lot of distinction anymore between your work and your life. Like, like the two things are very closely connected, and I think where people can turn what they do for their work, or what they love doing in their life, into what they do for work, then the magic happens there. And sometimes those things aren't going to be the same. So I think there is, well, I know there is a way of balancing and doing more than one thing. It's being really very, very clear on what the outcome of that is for you. So knowing that X amount of time is spent doing this, and then that will give me X result. And then Y amount of time is spent doing this, or that will give me Y result. And it's being very clear and having very clear distinctions between how you use your time, and not just waking up on a morning and going, can't be bothered to do podcast interview today, so let's just not do that. Just having some real distinctions between the time. And I'm a true believer in actually going with your energy as well, and thinking about what your energy looks like. So if you know that having a conversation with somebody at 6 o'clock in the evening is not when you're going to be at your best to ask the best questions, to be curious, to deep dive into what people are saying, then don't book it for 6 o'clock in the evening. That may be a perfect time for you to do your movement and bring some of that energy back into your body. So a lot of it is about understanding yourself, understanding why and how those things can work together. But I don't think anything is impossible. It just takes more planning, more structure, more consideration. Sometimes people don't like that, but there's ways of having structure, I think, in your day that doesn't feel restricted, but that flows with your energy, so that you can be spontaneous as well, to think, actually, no, now I don't want to do X, I want to do Y.
Yeah, beautiful. And I wanted to ask you, how long then from you quitting to you being clear that you are helping, how beautifully you articulated that you're an accountability strategist and you help people take action. How long was that time that you arrived at that and got that clarity that you're talking about? That this is who I'm working with, this is what I'm offering, and being able to communicate that as an offer.
It was January, February time. So I'd I'd quit at the end of July. Handed in my notice at the end of the July, started at the end of August. Um, and then it was January, February that it was really clear, and that I went all in on it. So quite a number of months. Um, I kept bouncing. I kept bouncing. It was what I wanted to do, but I just had this voice saying, it's not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough. But then eventually it was like, it's more than enough, and it's what's needed.
And I love that you're talking about it because I think until we do it, we have this idea that, oh, ta-da, the doors will open, right? Like whatever is it correlated to the optimism, right? In the beginning of the entrepreneurial journey, that now you have the freedom to do something on your own, and you feel that high, but you also have almost this like expectation that it will just work or somehow magically you will know, but that it does take even the first year, 6, 7 months, whatever, maybe plus minus, uh, to land on like even one clear direction.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Especially considering my background. So as I say, I've got 24 years experience. So one of the things that I thought about was um, actually business owners who are growing their business, and they've gone from working on their own, and now they're needing a team, and they've maybe never led a team and they haven't managed people before. And I thought, well, I've got years of experience of doing that. I've managed people, I've coached people, managed people, I've delivered leadership training, I've designed leadership training. Like, maybe that's what I could do. But then what I realized was I was trying to fit my skills and experience into a box rather than sit with what am I good at and what do I love doing. And that was the difference. So I was trying to fit my experience into something that I guess something that was more like a job rather than this is my business. So what do I want to do? So I think I was trying to fit it into a nice little box with a job and a title and something that made sense to my still sort of corporate mind, rather than actually this is my business, and like what I love doing is this. And the world of entrepreneurship, and the online world particularly, is day and night compared to corporate. So I'll do what I love, which also means that all of the I believe that we love the things that we're good at, and we're good at things because we love them. And so bring that together, and that's where the magic happens. And that was what it was for me. It was stop trying to fit my skills and experience into a box that again makes sense and is rational and has got a role profile perhaps, and do what feels right.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. The light like came over. Like I think the angle of the light, if you're watching the video, it's like now it's shining like over your face. It's as you were talking. But yeah, I think this is where the limitation sometimes is. We think that we will just do all these exercises, including what are your skills, and there's so many people that are also beautifully accomplished, have all this operational experience and leadership experience and stakeholder management and interacting with different people and teams and driving business or managing delivery against business outcomes. But it's a challenge. So you have this list of like these exercises of transferable skills, but you're still feeling stuck. So what would you give as an advice? Like what's the most potent, like top things somebody can do if they have this wealth of like they're very capable, right? Very smart, clearly accomplished, but how to transfer it into a next step?
That's a really good question. And I think it depends to a certain degree on the situation that you're in. If you're like me, you're leaving a role, and you're starting a business, then make it whatever you want it to be. Like, take all of the bits that you love and create your job in the business based on all of the things that you love to do. I think it's slightly different if you're leaving a role and you're looking to go into another employed role, because that role, that perfect role, may not exist. But I think knowing what you're looking for is more important. So being really clear on how do you want to spend your day? What does a good week look like? What does a good day within a week look like? How would you be spending your time? Would it be 50% of the time you on your own doing work on your own, and 50% of the time working in teams with people, whatever that looks like? And it doesn't need to be that level of detail, but just knowing what you enjoy doing. Because then when you look at a role, then you can look at it and you can go, actually, that's got 60% of what I'm looking for, I'm not going to apply for that. Or that's got 80% of what I'm looking for, I'm going to apply for that. Rather than looking for roles and trying to fit yourself into the role profile or fit yourself into the advert that you see. And I think, again, that depends on what's driving the decision for you to move. If you're being laid off, and you've got a time limit, then we're quite naturally going to be quite emotional. And it's like, well, I'm going to take that job because it's the first job that I've been offered, and I understand that as well. So when the second redundancy, um, there was a job that I was offered, but it was full time and there was no flexibility. And my son was quite young, and Ben was quite funny actually. He was like, "You're being made redundant again. You've lost your job again." It's like, yeah. But he'd said, "But you will still have Fridays off with me, won't you, Mum?" And so that was really important. So I'd been offered this job, but there was no flexibility. It was full time, and I was waiting for an interview for a job which I knew had the flexibility and that would be 4 days a week. And I was in this, it was a different position to the first redundancy. I didn't have the benefit of time. So it was like, okay, well, I'm going to take a risk. This job isn't guaranteed because I haven't even had an interview yet, but I know that this job isn't right because I would only be taking it because the offer's there and it's a job, whereas it's not right for me and it's not right for my family right now. So I'm going to decline that job. And the recruitment consultant thought I was crazy. I'm going to decline that job and I'm going to wait and see. And the risk paid off, but that's such an important part of knowing what you want to compromise on and what you don't, because otherwise if I'd have taken that job, I wouldn't have been happy at all. Ben wouldn't have been happy. It wouldn't have been the right thing. And even if it had been a brilliant job, it wouldn't have been the right thing for me. So knowing really what's important for you and at the stage that you are in life. So I think it depends. If you're in a job and you're looking to change jobs, then you've got more time so you can be more flexible. But if you're being laid off, then really consider the fact that you might be making decisions from emotion, and that's not the best place to make those decisions from sometimes.
Yeah, and you've been in that situation a couple of times where you the clarity is really important, and as you said, if it's because of the circumstance, right? You There's this story and part of the reality where you can feel financial pressure, right? And just to
Yeah.
go with what's offered and or stay in a job, kind of what you were describing. Um, it's so interesting that, you know, we really need to be grounded in that clarity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah,
when you go
with
ahead.
everything in life. I think that clarity is so important. Like um, coming back to your question earlier around different focus. Like if you're really clear that actually you want to build a business based on two things that you love, then that's great. But just being clear on what success looks like for one and what success looks like for the other and what success looks like for that altogether, because otherwise if you're not clear, then each day, each week, you're going to be thinking, right, I'm going to give all my focus to that. Oh, hang on a minute, I've not focused on that very much. And so without that clarity, we don't know where to invest our time. We don't know where to invest our money, and we don't know where to invest our energy. And our energy is just so important. So that clarity drives it has to drive everything, that clarity of where you're going and what you want, because that's what helps make decisions a lot easier.
But I wanted to say that the clarity is probably what's missing a lot of the time because especially it sounds like you were pretty happy or content and thriving in the roles that you had in corporate. But then there's the other experience, and I had that experience, and other people have this experience that they are not like there's something missing. They're stressed out. There's, it works on some level and it kind of goes up and down, right? And you kind of write it out when it's better. And then there are kind
Mm,
of some valleys where, the stress peaks and it works less. But there's no clarity, right? Kind of even what it looks like because you have clarity what success looks like in the function where you've been for years. But how
yeah.
can you have the clarity if you are longing for something new, but you don't know what it is? And maybe you have a few ideas of what you like to do and what you want, but you don't have the clarity of what, like, the outcomes, like this accountability, because you've never even done the thing.
Yeah. So I think that is where things get really difficult, because there's an element of trust that you need to have in what eventually that will look like.
Mhm.
So it's having the clarity in what you need at that time. So you're absolutely right. There's a huge difference between walking away from a job that you enjoy working with people, that you love working with, that you're not burnt out. It's a whole different ball game if you're burnt out, you're stressed, you just don't know where you're going. And I think part of that difference is that emotional cloud that is in our mind, because we will then just focus on all of the things that aren't working. We'll focus on feeling bad, and we'll just want to feel better. um and so we're just focusing on all of that stuff that's just not working. And when we're focusing on the stuff that's not working, it's really difficult for us to tune into what we enjoy doing and what does work. It's so our brains are naturally designed to look for danger, so it will always go to the bad stuff first. And so we have to really sit with ourselves and train it to look for the good stuff. So thinking about, well, actually, again, I think a lot of it comes back to really knowing yourself. If you on a perfect day, what would that look like? How would you spend your time? Who would you be engaging with? What would you be doing? And the more you can get closer to that, the more you can create that vision of what you want your life to be. And then the more that you can hold on to that, then the clearer other things become. So going back to my example, Ben had made it perfectly clear that he still wanted me to have Fridays off. So when faced with a job offer that didn't give me Fridays off, that didn't match with my vision. Um, and that was because it was just really clear that one of the most important things to me was my son and the relationship and the life that I was giving him. So it's that clarity around what lights you up, what is important to you, what you enjoy doing, what you love doing, how you want to be spending your time. Um, and then it's finding the opportunities that align to that in the best way possible.
Mm.
Having said that, when you just need to quit and walk away because it's a toxic environment or you're burnt out, then that that thinking and that clarity, I think, can only come after you've processed some of that stuff that's happened. Does that make sense?
I love how you summarized it. And it sounds like so you knew parts and pieces of, I mean, you knew a lot of what you were good at and what you enjoyed, which is, it sounds easy knowing yourself, but I think it can be a struggle,
Yes, it's
more
hard.
than 50% of the time. And then it, what did the even with that level of clarity, right, and knowledge that you had around that, what did the mentorship and the mastermind or the coaching program that you went through help you achieve?
So that was giving me all of the pieces that I guess it was putting the pieces together. So it was that challenge, that questioning. When you become your own boss and you have your own business, then the person that you turn to make decisions is yourself. Um, and so being asked a difficult question or a challenging question can be hard, because exactly as you've just said there, it's hard doing the hard stuff. It's hard acknowledging what you don't know. It's hard thinking, oh God, I need to learn that. How do I do that? And so entering into the mastermind and working with a mentor meant that I was challenged with questions that I needed to think about, that helped me really think about, well, actually, what does that look like? It helped me realize that it's okay. So I I kept thinking accountability wasn't enough. Like, who needs accountability? But then you have that question, and you're challenged with, well, do some research, understand what are some of the problems, what are people googling, what are people looking for, and so that questioning helps you take action, that helps you decide one way or another that that's a good thing to do. So in the first instance, it's just having somebody else help you with your thinking. And I'm a huge believer that conversation, coaching, questioning, listening with somebody else helps you get a lot clearer of what's going on in your mind, because we can tell ourselves stories.
Mhm.
But when you're sat talking to somebody, you can tell when somebody is saying something that they don't believe, and then you can challenge them on that in whatever way you've contracted to do so. So either directly or softly, however you do it. So when you're with somebody else, they can challenge you. So you can be telling yourself this story, but somebody else can recognize that you're just giving yourself an excuse or telling a story, and that person can challenge you on it and move your position, and that's how you can get closer to where you are. Because otherwise we'll just stay where we are because it's comfortable and it's scary. But when there's somebody else especially somebody that's been where you are and they're now where you want to be,
Mhm.
then that helps you move towards it.
Yeah. No, you don't know what you don't know. Toni, thank you so much for sharing these parts of your story and your wisdom. Can you tell us how we can connect with you and find you and follow you?
You can find me on Instagram. That's where I am most active. I'm Toni Addinall Strategist. So come and give me a follow over there. And when you follow me, drop me a DM, because I love getting to know and having a conversation with people to just figure out who they are and what makes them tick.
Thank you so much, Toni. It was such a pleasure and fun talking to you and learning a bit more about your background.
Thank you so much.
If you